Welcome to This Week in Habsland. I am Jordan and he is Brian. We are coming to you after the Habs hold the door and win Game 5 in Tampa Bay 3-2. Brian, I want to start off with this. What do you think about the Habs strategy of winning all the odd-numbered games in this series, and what do you think that tells us about Game 6 coming up?
They're winning Game 6. If they play like this, they're winning Game 6. I don't care about the alternating so far. It just shows how close this series has really been. I think that's all it shows.
Yeah. Joking aside, what a game. I was just telling you, like, I stood the whole game, and my heart rate, I was tracking it at the end, got over 140, which, not great. Got through 2 podcasts today. One was on the Fallout season finale, which I was quite behind on, and the other was about the Michael Jackson movie. And more seriously, a lot of different places we can start with today. And I think we've mentioned it in the past, like Marty St. Louis, and this is his first real test. Last year, 5-game series, wickedly overpowered. That Caps team versus last year's Habs, it wasn't a fair fight. So St. Louis learning stuff, there were no counter moves. We saw it. They didn't have counter moves after a while. We praised them for keeping Dach in after the turnover or the icing in Game 2, plays great in Game 3. And then this game. So we hear the rumblings about, I think it must have been Wednesday morning. The Habs reporters started kind of figuring out Gallagher wasn't at the optional skate, which is usually a huge sign for, and Kapanen was. And that's usually a huge sign for, hey, that guy's playing. If they're not at the optional skate, they're not going to play. Or they are going to play, sorry. Okay, so then we're like, cool, this is what the Habs are going to do. And we start looking at the lineups and warmups. And we see, okay, first line's got the first line stuff together. We see Jake Evans is being moved around a little bit. He's going up to the second line. We're going to put Gallagher with the fourth line. Great stuff. And then what does Marty do? He puts, so no one sees this in practice. The red herring, which is not necessarily an entire red herring, is Gallagher coming to the lineup, and that's the focus. And then even in warmups, he's like, yeah, no, these are my lines. Opening shift, we have Caulfield, Suzuki, Anderson, and then up over the boards after that, Demidov, Slavkovsky with Jake Evans. This absolutely threw Tampa off for the first 6 to 8 minutes. The Canadiens score early on. We're absolutely getting to Galley. I know you're ready to run in on that. But on Marty, in terms of what he did today, of juggling the lines, splitting up the first line, and what do you think that contributed positively to the win? Was it just happenstance that they played better as a team today? How much did some mind games, certainly with Tampa, and them not even having the slightest inkling of what was happening, but like, what did you think of Marty's decision to finally throw the lines in a blender?
Perfect timing to do it and perfect execution. To catch Jon Cooper off guard, that means something. And that made a whole heck of a difference. You and I called it that eventually every season for the rebuild, the entirety of the rebuild, Evans ends up as the second line center. We said it, I think, in the preview episode. He just ends up as the second line center. At a certain point, Marty goes, all right, Jake, get in there. And it was Game 5 in Tampa that where we saw this happen. The Anderson on the top line thing was fascinating. I thought of this one after Game 3. And it was when we were discussing Slavkovsky needing help or Demidov needing help, and Slavkovsky potentially being the guy to go do that, and then who would come up. And it occurred to me, it flashed to me, like Josh Anderson has done it before. He's been having a tremendous playoffs. And then I thought for 3 seconds about it, and I was like, no, that's stupid. They've tried it a bunch of times. It has never worked consistently, and they're not going to do it again. And was it their line that produced the offense? No, it wasn't, but they were pretty competitive. The third line was awesome. And then Galley was terrific. I do absolutely want to chomp on that for a while, but I'll throw it back to you first before we get to Gallagher, because we could talk for longer about Marty's brilliance of screwing with Jon Cooper on the road, where Jon Cooper thinks he has the advantage, and then he shows up to the rink and he still thinks he has the advantage. They get behind the bench, and then the first players come out and he goes, oh shit, I didn't plan for that.
Yep. Yeah, so we had Suzuki, Caulfield, Anderson. Throwback to 2023, good and bad. Second line, Demidov and Slav reunited. Jake Evans, our second line savior as usual, like you mentioned, keeps the third line together of Dach, Texier, and Zach Bodzuk. And there's a huge moment, obviously, with Texier bearing the lead. He has the game-winning goal, and what is the most important goal in this rebuild's history is currently owned by Alex Texier. And then fourth line is just like we said, oh man, you can't break up Anderson, Danault, and Evans. Doesn't matter. Danault, Newhook, and Gallagher, sure. What I thought was really cool about all these lines, there's one mother effer on each of these lines that's just going to fly through the wall. Josh Anderson, love him or hate him as a top 6 guy. Right now, he's flying through the wall. So there was something about Slav's game today that I really liked. Him and Demidov, the chemistry was right there again. The forecheck was right there. And Jake Evans, the perfect guy, honestly, to put between those two.
Sure.
But Slav flying through the wall. Third line, they're all flying through the wall. They don't need to be told anything right now. And then let's get to him. The fourth line, Brendan Gallagher, heart and soul, sits for the first 4 games of the series. That's got to be tough, man. That's your alternate captain. That's your longest tenured Montreal Canadian.
Most playoff experience.
Over 900 games, over 200 plus goals. And what does he do, Brian, right at the beginning of the game? He does Brendan Gallagher stuff.
Yeah.
Charges the net, stays right there, pops it in the open net, gives the Habs the early lead. What were you thinking? I know as like one of the biggest Brendan Gallagher fans of like when he did it, was it just kind of like, well, like a shrug of like, what else did you expect to happen?
It was sort of that. It was a really poetic kind of tear-jerking moment. I would have cried if I had tears, but I didn't. But it was a really emotional, like poetic. I saw somebody post on Blue Sky saying, you know, who needs fiction when you have hockey stories because of this one? It was something like that. I forget exactly what they said, but it kind of captured that this was a really poetic and important moment for the Canadiens in general, for Brendan Gallagher, and for everything that he's meant to the team for this long. And in his very first shift of the playoffs. And it started much prior to that. You started the story when he charged in and got that rebound, but he was the one who diffused the pressure in the defensive zone to play the puck to the weak side for a clean breakout. He had that neutral zone kind of poke check thing that got the puck back to Newhook after the broken transition there. Newhook, by the way, another guy who just will run through a wall. He's smaller, so the walls are a little bit smaller, but he goes to the net harder or as hard as anyone if you include Gallagher.
Well, that's the goal, right? It's Newhook just flying right to Vasilevsky and opens up. And we've seen Alex Newhook do this every 2 weeks. I wish it was more consistent.
Yeah.
The amount of times he is able, knowingly or unknowingly, with his speed to just push people back.
Yeah.
And create open space for his line mates. We've seen him do it in the regular season, and we now saw him to do it with Gally. And that line today was just like, just go to the net. Whether you have the puck or not, just go to the net, run there. There was a lot of like, they didn't play that much. Gally played, I think you and I were just looking at it, like 6 or 7 minutes at 5-on-5, which you would expect. He could have scored another goal late in the game there. He had a really nice shot up and close against Vasilevsky. He didn't miss it by much. There's the forecheck he has where he kind of yoinks it from Vasilevsky and Danault's right in front, and they're just off a little bit. Perfect game. Perfect Brendan Gallagher game. The same way we were very impressed with Arbor Jackey's play early in the game, in the series, I should say, of like, hey, this is the perfect usage of 10, 11 minutes of Arbor Jackey. This was great usage of like 8 or 9 minutes of Brendan Gallagher. You're not going to overuse him. You're not going to overtax him. And he knows what he's supposed to give you. He's been watching the whole series. You know, Gally's been there watching the tape. And it was great to see him with Danault, with Alex Newhook. Honestly, great experience for Alex Newhook to be with like the 2 vets really on like this. Those are probably the 2 oldest forwards on the team. And them, I'm sure, just telling him like, watch what we're going to do. This is playoff hockey. It's a little bit different. Fly to the net, go to the net, throw pucks on net. When one guy's behind, bring the other guy on the other side of the net. One guy stays in front. We do a little triangle. We don't complicate our game. It was really cool stuff.
So is Newhook Tatar 2.0?
I would love that. You know my qualms about Alex Newhook, but no criticism after a win.
Of course.
I thought, these guys are great.
Well, you were right to say that he caused that goal completely by crashing. Yeah. Well, he blasts in on the rush after getting the puck in the neutral zone. He rips the puck and it gets deflected wide, and then he's the first on that deflection, rebound, whatever you want to call it. And then he goes forehand, backhand, despite 2 defensemen being there. And then, bounces back. Who was there with his stick on the ice and a gleam in his eye? But Brendan, net crashing, shovel shooting motherfucking Gallagher.
Yeah, he's fantastic. It could not have been the same way. Dach scoring in game 3 was perfect. Gally scoring in game 5 is perfect.
Yeah.
Newhook, by the way, had two amazing chances created by Lane Hudson. One was, I think, Hudson coming out of the box from his delay of game.
Yes, it was.
Just unreal stuff by Hudson. And Newhook couldn't totally finish. Not that it was an easy finish, but again, there were moments. There was a lot of moments early on in this game where the Canadiens could have jumped ahead 3-1, 4-1. Didn't happen, but it's okay. They kept it close. We have spent about 10 minutes so far. We've talked about Marty. We've talked about Galley. Brian, Tampa Bay had the last 14 shots on goal in this game, including 9 with the goalie pulled. So when people are going to look up, okay, I haven't done this yet. I haven't prepared you for this yet. This is a bit of a tangent. My biggest pet peeve with people who observe hockey from a National Hockey League perspective. And what I mean by that is people who say they follow the whole league. I think that's an incredibly hard thing to do. What often ends up happening is people just look at box score, or they look at Hockey DB, or both. You know who I'm talking about, but it's okay. Everyone does this. When you're going to look at this game, you're going to see the final shots are, I believe, 40 to 24. They might take a Tampa shot away or maybe 2 shots away. Who knows? At one point, the shots are 26-24. I want to get into this third period and how the Habs played, but we'll go the Dobes part first. So it's really misleading, the final shot total. Except 9 shots with the goalie pulled on what is essentially a 2.5-minute power play on the road to close out. Brian, this is what I wanted. This is like we were talked about the last game, like that's opportunities missed last year. They got one, and Jakub Dobes, not one particular like, oh my God, how did he stop that save? But just consistently, and he had a bit of a journey today with his puck handling, mostly good. But the final 2.5 minutes, he's the star of the show, and he got them over the line.
He played unbelievably well. Those 9 shots and the several before that in the third period, you told me that they had the last 14 shots in a row, including like 5 prior to the goalie being pulled, and then the 9 with the goalie pulled.
Yeah,
and that's absolutely astounding. Dobes was phenomenal on all of it. Okay, you also have to consider that who was taking these shots? Was it Hagel and Point and Kucherov and Gensel, like elite offensive talent? They took those 9 shots. They took those 14 shots. Phenomenal game from Jakub Dobes. It wasn't just that little instance of it. The 25 or so shots that were prior to that craziness at the end of the game, those count too. And he kept the team in it the entire way, when at any moment a lesser goalie might have let a bad one in and then just win completely out of the sails, because the other thing that the Canadiens had going for them was their momentum, and a bad goal would have just erased that. And Dobes is not letting that happen in the series. We said he'd have to steal one on the road. Now the Canadiens played well, but to save 38 out of a possible 40 shots, I think you could qualify that as stealing a game on the road.
It's close. I'll push back on it because the 5-on-5 numbers will show the Habs were the better team today. That's all 6-on-5 at the end. I'm not pretending it didn't happen, but it's really skewing those last 2.5 minutes, all the bigger numbers. Having said that, he's a 24-year-old goaltender who just made 38 saves on the road. He is the first star of the game. That cannot be argued. He was their best player today. It's more of like akin to a save than a baseball closer save.
That's very well said.
Than a steal. I know I'm mixing all the sports analogies, but it felt more like that. Like he was good in the first. He was perfectly fine in the first 2 periods. Him and Vasilevsky head to head, pretty even. Again, I thought I saw Vasilevsky making slightly more difficult saves, but overall, plus or minus 5%, those guys were a duel back and forth for the first 2 periods. Vasi gives up a terrible goal to Texier, and Dobes held the door. He didn't give up anything, so he's great there at the end. I did want to talk about this third period because, Brian, I think this was the best road third period this team has played under Martin St. Louis. This was not they took the lead really early. What is that? A minute and a half in when Texier gets his goal to put them up 3-2. So once again, the Habs have a lead at this point. We're over 4.5 games into the series. They have not held on to a lead yet. And again, here's another test. They did not sit back in a shell in that third period. They were on the forecheck nonstop. Every single line getting out there. Demidov was behind the net. Gallagher was behind the net. Evans was behind the net. On and on and on and on. Those guys were just obviously Kirby, Dach, and Texier and Bolduc were just flying in. and keeping the puck in the Tampa zone. The Canadiens could have got another goal or two. I mentioned that Gallagher one with like 6-7 minutes left. Slavkovsky, this is the first time I've noticed him on the forecheck all series. I don't know what it was about the new mixture with Evans and Demidov, but first time for real, it's not in the first period. You're like, oh wait, Slav's on the forecheck. That's part of his game now. Mike Matheson mistakes aside, I thought that was their best third period on the road I've seen these guys play in 4 years. Tell me I'm wrong.
I can't disagree with that. I think end to end, beginning to end of period, it was fantastic. And volume doesn't mean quantity, quality. Quantity doesn't mean quality. And when you look at the shots, that's what you see is quantity. And the Canadiens were fantastic at making sure that Dobes could and would make every one of those saves. It wasn't all him. It wasn't all them. It was just sort of a perfect tandem. Do you want to get into the Mike Matheson stuff quickly? Because you just mentioned him. I actually thought that overall he had a fairly good game defensively, and he had a very nice block in the third period that was crucial, like quite late in the game. Probably more than one, but I'm remembering a specific one on maybe a Radish shot.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a couple. There's one great moment actually after one of the Matheson screw ups where he doesn't get his guy at the blue line. Josh Anderson has an amazing active stick to break up a quasi 2-on-1 break.
Yeah, they had each other's backs.
I just want to wrap the bow on the this like potential fallacy we might hear from people who didn't really watch the game. At 5-on-5 in the third period. Shot attempts 14-11 Tampa. Okay, that's basically a nothing burger because it's Tampa chasing for 18.5 minutes. Scoring chances 7-6 for Tampa.
Wow.
It's a complete nothing burger. High danger 2-1 Tampa. Whatever.
Wow.
In the 2.5 minutes that the goalie is pulled, Tampa Bay has 15 shot attempts. We've already said 9 of those hit the net.
In 2.5 minutes. So
yeah.
That's 6. That's literally 6. That's one every 10 seconds.
Part of it is Dobes was not afraid to freeze the puck because of how good the Habs have been on the at the faceoff circle this whole series. It was a bit more mixed there at the end. Suzuki was winning some, he was losing some. So same goes for Dano.
Those freezes also, sorry to cut you off, those also allowed Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Dano, Matheson, Carrier to get back out there. Because they were on for a long time at the end, and Marty even used a timeout to keep them out for longer to defend this lead. And those freezes allowed them, and Slav iced the puck once, maybe twice after a few blocks. Yeah. They were taking draws. It did not matter. They knew that Dobes was behind them, and
Yeah, there was one bad Slavkovsky ice where he goes hero and he tries to get it in the net.
Score, yeah.
Beyond that, I thought they were, it was holding on for dear life. But again, there's one moment where Dobes goes a little out of position, but the Habs do enough to disrupt Tampa Bay from being able to take a shot. Okay, do you want to do the Matheson stuff? Because he's going to be the scapegoat for a lot of people today. We can just start with how many minutes he played, because he was once again the most used Montreal Canadian, played almost 28 minutes, which is significantly more. Lane Hudson only played 23.5. Of course, again, the final 2.5 minutes skews things, certainly.
Sure.
So before you get to that, he's still at 25. Hudson's at 23.5. Okay, whatever. I started making notes about this, and I'm happy when they were killing the penalty in the second period. I was starting to get annoyed that they weren't clearing the puck off the boards fast enough. Matheson is really bad at this, that he refuses to just rip it around the boards. Gooley started doing it. Carrier started doing it. I was happy they were clearing it more consistently. Matheson really tries to slow the game down sometimes, and when he tries to get the puck out of the zone, and there was some bad decisions there. And then of course it's the pinch that and then he takes a shot that is off net. I didn't think it was a bad pinch, but if you're going to do that, aim 5-hole, don't aim top corner far side, because then it rims around and you create an odd man rush. I thought he struggled a lot today, and it's been he's been teetering towards bad. And we know the Matheson Carrier duo is just, it's not it right now. But again, I can only be so negative because of the amount he's being asked. And all 4 of those guys really are being asked to do when there's very limited trust, especially on the road with Jack Struble.
Yeah, it's an overexposure thing is really all it is. It's asking him to do too much. And I know that the sentiment in Habs land right now, I'll quote our friend Santi because I think he put it quite nicely about how a lot of people are feeling about Mike Matheson right now. It was after the second goal went in for them after, a pretty bad giveaway. Why is Matheson purposely trying to make us lose? And he's saying that in jest. Obviously, it's a joke, but enough giveaways happen and you start to wonder, like, what the hell's going on with this guy? And I just said it's who he is. He's high risk, moderate reward. That's Mike Matheson.
Yeah, to an extent. I think the over usage of it does fry your brain a little bit after a while. And
yes, I do mean specifically using him that much, because we do know that when he plays about 15, 16 minutes, that's a great Mike Matheson game, even closer to 20. But playing the most of any Canadian, 25 minutes, that you're going to see some cracks.
That's the sweet spot. He still blocks 4 shots today. He's still in there at the end of the game, sacrificing it all. We saw Noah Dobson skating these past couple days. He seems to be taking like light wrist shots, but like I'm split kind of on whether or not Dobson needs to come back in this. I presume they're not going to bring him back now for 6. And if any, I think they might just understand he's just not coming back for this series. Because I don't know if you throw someone into the deep end in a game 7 on the road, but also Jaden Struwell played 10:23 and Arbor Jackal played 9:54. My theory is, like, can you get a better 10.5 minutes? Can you actually get like 16 minutes out of Noah Dobson? And then you can bring Matheson down a couple minutes. You can bring Carrier down a couple minutes. Keep Hudson there. Keep Cooley there. They're fine. They're young.
Yeah, maybe. This series has been so physical. And of course, you expected that against Tampa. It's been so physical, and they take a lot of booming point shots. I can't imagine the horror of Dobson receiving a slap shot on his injured hand, wrist, whatever, from Radish, for instance. And then suddenly it's not like, hey, we're bringing him back a game or 2 early. Suddenly it's, oh shit, he's out for all the playoffs now. And that's, I think, a much bigger loss. You're up 3-2. If you were facing elimination, perhaps this is a different story. And I know a game 7 technically is facing elimination, but the team that got you there arguably should be given the chance to just win it. And then he can come in organically if and when they make it to the next series. And it's that many more days. You're right. They looked like kind of nothing Victor Mete wristers. So you can't really put too much stock in that. And once again, it's blocking a shot. It's getting into a crazy puck battle where you forget, because competitive enough people and athletes will forget they are hurt in a moment and slash at a puck and go, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, and just worsen it. So that's my fear for Dobson.
Okay. I think I agree. I don't think we're going to see him this series, but you and I have been proven wrong multiple times in the past 2 weeks. So let's see if that trend continues. And by the way, your pick, of Tampa in 6 is officially off the board.
Thank
I'm sure
goodness.
You're thrilled
about.
Oh
my God. So happy.
So couple things I wanted to touch on. Nick Suzuki on the penalty kill. This guy is so good at it. And
I mean, he's good at everything.
Like, I know, but he's like, I forgot how good he can be on the penalty kill, because Marty smartly, because we complained about it, don't put him there. You have other guys. He has other responsibilities. He's responsible for the goal scoring.
Right.
Which I know is not going great right now, although he has now picked up his 5th assist, because he has a secondary assist on the Texier goal. I think he's off the ice by the time the goal happens, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
That was his first 5-on-5 point, by the way.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. And again, he wasn't even on the ice for being one of those 5.
That play,
he's physical.
That play was the Hudson pass.
Yes, it's the stretch pass from Lane Hudson.
Like a 2-line pass. It was beautiful.
Texier. Yeah. Nick Suzuki, I'm continuing to be really impressed with what he's able to do while not, again, he's 5 assists is nothing to laugh at, but like, while he's not really been able to assert himself offensively in this series, I've been more and more impressed these last 3 games 3 through 5. He's hitting guys. He's back on the penalty kill more consistently. And I mean, they create a good chance with him where he has a nice slick Nick move on the penalty kill really early on. I think it's in the first period. Vasilevsky on some of these breakaways and 2-on-1s has been fantastic. It's really weird that he gives up that rush chance goal to Texier, but I'm not going to complain about it. So there's one other guy we kind of need to get to. You know who it is. Do you want to get to anyone else before?
Well, just one last thing on Suzuki. 9-3 in the face-off circle. That's fantastic. That's one way that he's really contributing. Jake Evans, 12-2.
Consistent trend.
Holy crow.
The whole series.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to do Cole Caulfield. It's a tough one. This is a tough one. Plays only 13 minutes. So significantly lower than Suzuki, significantly lower than Slavkovsky. And Danault's really up there again because of all the defensive zone stuff in the last 2.5 minutes. But he's basically with everybody else, with Evans and Texier. Like, he's kind of in that group in terms of how much he was on the ice today. Only 11 minutes at 5-on-5. 1 shot on goal. What's going on here?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to this question that I'm confident in, and I also don't want to speculate, really. But something is clearly, just from the outside looking in eye test, this is not the same Cole Caulfield as the guy who scored 51 goals. And at the start of the series, when it was very small sample size, I thought, wow, they're just really game planning him well. And then as you watch him more closely, there's something missing. There's an extra gear that's missing here, especially in the puck battles, in getting to the dangerous areas and fighting off guys and then sneaking away the way that he does. So again, I don't love the idea of speculating, but something's wrong. Something is clearly wrong. Thankfully, it's not a cause for concern because they're getting, well, it's a cause for concern, but it's not as big a cause for concern because they're getting secondary scoring. We got goals from Gallagher, we got a goal from Dach, and we got a goal from Texier tonight. So thank goodness the other dudes are contributing, because the over-reliance on Cole Caulfield at times in the regular season, it's not a sustainable strategy anyway. So the team in general around him is finding ways to score, which is great, but it's still a giant worry. Your 51 goal scorer, your near Rocket Richard winner should have been if the empty net didn't count. It's worrisome, to say the least.
The part of the sign to me is that I thought Slavkovsky 5-on-5, this was his best game of the series. I've just mentioned it. I feel like Suzuki's been trending upwards the last couple games. Cole Caulfield took roughly 5 shot attempts a game in the regular season. He is hovering closer to 2 in this series. And I don't think a Cole Caulfield that I know is afraid to take a shot. And I don't think it's because of not a lack of opportunity. Because it could be that has to be some of it, with the Cirelli part of it. There's something that's off. And I think that's as far as you and I want to take it right now. I don't think it's over. He scored in game 4. He scored what should have been a huge goal in game 4.
Yeah.
The 2-0 goal. It did end up mattering, but it's something to keep monitoring. I really like this split here do you think these lines, it's kind of silly to talk about it when Marty will just be like, that's cool, guys. I'm going to bring Patrick Laine in for the next game. Do you think these lines stay together? And is that the right approach, specifically when thinking about the Caulfield perspective of like, how much do you need to kind of get him going?
I think it stays together for the simple reason that everybody except for Caulfield played well. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even getting on him. Caulfield has earned the utmost amount of leeway in terms of, he's banged up or hurt or whatever you want to call, like something's wrong. We're gonna, okay, that's fine. Like, it happens. It's all good, dude. You've done enough. Keep playing, keep trying hard. But I don't see them being adjusted around him simply because there's something wrong there. He made the adjustment. It worked tonight in the results and through the eye test, I would say. Like it wasn't the type of thing where he changed it and then the top line got caved in by the opposition. They weren't giving up crazy chances or anything like that. It's just they weren't generating the way they usually do. And putting Slavkovsky with Demidov at least allows them to produce something in a different way. And they're also not getting the Cirelli matchup. And so they're getting more fruitful opportunities in the offensive zone. And so I think it almost works out perfectly that if Caulfield is battling something that's keeping him from playing at his best, put Anderson with him, who solidifies them defensively and makes it damn sure that they're not getting beat in terms of like possession or shot attempts or anything like that. But then your second line can actually do something. And then Jake Evans just protects them from defensive lapses, I guess. So it's actually working quite well. And then the third and fourth line were great. And I wanted to say that I meant to say this earlier when we were talking Gallagher, because the Kapanen storyline is a part of it, going from the second line center who was, top 5 among rookies and scored a bunch of goals and looked great with Demidov and Newhook and And then playoffs come, and just before the playoffs come, he's demoted, and now he's in the press box. And the 7, 8, I forget exactly how many minutes of Brendan Gallagher that we got to, not even under 7 minutes we got of Brendan Gallagher, I think was more valuable than the whatever 10, 11 we were getting from Kapanen, where Kapanen was nearly invisible and Brendan Gallagher wasn't.
Yeah. We definitely have to, again, that's credit for Marty for having the guts to break up his de facto shutdown line for at least the game, for at least a couple periods. Again, Danault basically gets repurposed late in the third period, but that took a lot of guts, man, because you and I were trying to figure it out. We're like, well, we can't really touch that line. We toyed with the idea of Evans moving up, but I don't think if it was up to either of us, we would have done it, because we feel like we can't move that. They have this really smart thing going on with 2 centers, and a guy who was turned into a really good defensive forward in Josh Anderson. He does it. It works out. We'll see what happens. I'll be interested to see how Cooper approaches. Now he loses last change, but that didn't really stop Cooper in games 3 and 4 from attacking the Suzuki line with Cirelli. He was still doing it, by the way. If anything, it was mucking up the flow of the Lightning forwards, I found.
Right.
We didn't talk about that in 3 and 4, but the sudden, oh my God, get off the ice, 14's here, we have to run away, and get Cirelli on. I think that's still the plan, but I do wonder if Cooper's a bit looser with it now, and he's like, gotta throw it a bit to Slavkovsky, Evans, and Demidov. We know Caulfield, man, he only needs one chance.
That's it.
He just needs to and the opportunities I think will be there on Friday night, and we can start shifting towards that to start closing this out, because we're starting to go a little bit long, but it's almost a running joke at this point that this is now the biggest game in this group's history. You have the ability to close out a former Cup champion on home ice. And what I want to stress here is how difficult it is to close out a series. Look at what we've seen across the NHL. Anaheim, on their first crack at it, could not close out Edmonton. Buffalo, their first crack at it, they could not close out Boston at home. And we're recording this live, so this game is in progress. Philly has had 2 cracks so far, has not closed out Pittsburgh. And again, as we're recording, they're an overtime, scoreless game in overtime. Haven't closed it out. A slightly different one. Utah was in the same position as the Habs. Up 2-1, up a goal. Couldn't win that. That series is 2-2. What do all these teams have in common? Philly, Anaheim, Buffalo, Utah. They are the young team going up against Boston, Pittsburgh, Vegas, Edmonton, the old team. They've all lost. I just contextualize it. I'm not creating excuses early, but to get it right on your first shot, and look, the Habs blew game 4. So maybe that was their first crack at it for real. I just want to add the context of how hard it is to close out a team, especially the young teams. Look how much they're all struggling with it right now. And Philly might prevail, but they'll have still lost games 4 and 5. And Anaheim's lost game 5, and Buffalo lost game 5. It's very hard to do. So with that, Brian, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's happening in game 6? Tell me one thing that will happen and what the result will be. They can be separate. They don't have to be connected. It can be so-and-so scores or something about a penalty, and then tell me what the result is. They can or cannot be related.
It's going to be a Lane Hudson 3-point night, and the Canadiens win. And the first part I just flat out believe in, because Lane Hudson's incredible. And I think they're going to get more power play opportunity. Tonight was kind of absurdly low compared to the rest of the series. I think 3 and 2 opportunities for Montreal and Tampa. Very few penalties. Just
quickly on that. Sure. Not about complaining about it, because we all know the stupidity that happened before the Tampa goal. We can move past it. We've talked about this, Brian. The shift of how much penalties are called.
Yes.
We said over the course of the playoffs, it goes down. Over the course of a series, it goes down. Today felt like the inflection point, because look at the penalties that were called. You had 2 puck over glass. You had a high stick with blood, and then the Jack Eye one, which whatever.
The WWE takedown.
Yeah, I mean that was stupid. But that's what the line was. There was one really bad slash on Zach Bolduc. They didn't call it. I think we saw the tipping point now, Brian, in terms of what's going to be called. We'll see what happens in game 6. Power plays would be interesting. I think we're getting a Caden Gooley goal.
Wow. Gooley has been phenomenal.
He's been awesome. He's probably been one of their 5 best players. He scored a huge goal at the end of last season in the Carolina game that gets the Habs. I think it's the lead against Carolina in game 82. I think it's eventually a Suzuki goal that's the clincher.
Okay.
But Gouli has the big goal. There's something there. There's a clutch gene there in Caden Gouli. Well, he'll score 7 goals a year, but you'll remember all 7 of them. I think we're going to get one of those in game 6. I think we're getting a big Caden Gouli goal.
Very nice.
He's been awesome. And I mean, good for him. Yeah. Habs take it. They got to take it. Friday night. It's going to be very, very tough. You're getting Tampa's best shot. But if the Canadiens play the way they did in those first 17 and a half minutes before the goalie got pulled of the third period, and they can bring some of that back home, we're in for a hell of a night on Friday.
Yeah. And then
any last words?
I hate to bring it to this place, but they kind of have to win. I don't like the idea of going back to Tampa after they just took a game on the road. I know it's been alternating all series, us, them, now us. I don't love the idea of going back to Tampa. Just win it at home, boys. You don't have 2 games to win this thing. Just win the next game.
If there's any franchise that should be comfortable with winning game 7s on the road, though, Brian, it's the Montreal Canadiens.
Sure.
You know, it's Washington in 2010, Pittsburgh in 2010, Boston in 2014, and theoretically Toronto in 2021. When you think about it,
I guess
I know it wasn't a full building, but it was in Toronto.
Yeah, that was a tremendous choke job from the opposition too.
So, anyways, wow, they're up 3-2. Huge game on Friday. We're all going to sleep well, I'm sure, and yeah, just let's get through this all together. I'll take any pop culture podcast recommendations from folks. I need about 3 hours worth for Friday. I powered through a lot of TV shows this past week. I have Daredevil to catch up on, so we'll all get through this together. Brian, I joined you on the soda, keeping me awake today. I had my Crush Zero keeping me going. I know you had your I think you had a Diet Coke going, so powering through. We're making it. Game 6 next. You can follow us on social media at HabsLandPod. Follow the podcast on Spotify. 5-star ratings. It's very late, guys. I'm exhausted. Whatever, man. Go Habs. Crush the Lightning on Friday. Have a good one. We'll speak to you after Game 6.